Harry, welcome to Radioacktiva. How are you? It's a great pleasure having you with us.
I'm very well. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us about this new record as I try not to fall apart. I always like to ask if there's something in the title of the record that you want to share with us. And that's because once you start listening to the record and just the opening track, Am I Really Going to Die? You get the idea that maybe it's not just a title, but there is something behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tricky question to answer because I can't really speak for the whole band. You know, I think for all of us it would be different. For me personally, I think the title fits so perfectly with like what we've just lived through or what we're living through still with, you know, with coronavirus. But more personally, I guess with the band, all of those lockdowns and isolations kind of forced us apart a little bit, and actually made writing and recording an album really hard. And so I feel like the title has some poignancy, has some meaning for me there, because it's almost how we felt, I think, at some points when we were making the album. Let's just try not to fall apart. Let's keep going. Let's keep it together. And luckily we did. So yeah, but I think that the album, it definitely carries a bit of that meaning for me, the title.
How did it work creating a new record in lockdown and all that? I don't know how are you guys living it on that side of the world, but how did it work? I mean, did you guys need to meet up or send the files? How did it work?
We at the start, that's exactly what we did. We just sent each other lots of music, you know, back and forth, and tried to decide what we were going to do. And then I feel like we kind of there were so many false starts sort of on the record because we went into the first lockdown 2019. We were like, okay, we'll be touring again in 2020. We'll be touring again by the autumn. You know, we'll be out on the road again. And then every time we were getting ready to do that, we kept getting pushed back, and we just knew it wasn't going to happen. So we kind of, in the end, rushed into the studio a little bit in the autumn last year, in September time, and we didn't really need to in the end. So we did this whole session, like a month session in a great studio, a couple of great studios in London, and we came out with some really good songs, but we felt like it was kind of unfinished, like we had more to do, you know, and we had to reconnect a little bit. And so we spent another 5 months writing at the beginning of this year and added a few more songs to the album. And then I think we ended up with something in the end, like very complete and balanced, and has a lot of different kinds of music on it, a lot of different feels on it. Yeah.
And it actually, I might be wrong, you know, but it's my impression. It feels different from your previous record. You know, musically, it feels like a different, I don't know, when I listen to the first track, it has this moment when it just explodes differently. And I was wondering, you know, how this, not to call it a change of sound, but it seemed to me very different from the previous record. So I wanted to know a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think, again, that was probably born out of the fact that we were kind of making the album apart from each other and in different ways, you know. So a lot of the songs ended up being very different to anything we've done before, and very different from each other. And I feel like I always say this when we release an album, when we make an album, but the songs are very varied on this album. Like, they feel very different to each other stylistically, to me anyway. Like, there's a lot of difference between a song like Blue Drift, for example, on the album, and Am I Really Gonna Die? They're like totally polar opposites to me, which, you know, it can be a bit of a trap that you fall into, but I think on this album it works. Like, it's nice to have that variety, and that's just because of how we made it, you know, how apart we were and how we had to bring it all together. Yeah.
But I liked it because it surprised me. It became unexpected. You know, I really liked 5. But when I listened to this one, I was like, okay, this is different.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great to hear. I'm glad you feel the same way, because we feel that way about the album as well. Like, I think it's going to surprise a few people. But I think the big singles will sit well with White Lies fans. You know, there's a few songs on there which are very much White Lies songs, you know. And I think as well, like, because of the way that I sing, it's quite recognizable. And I think that's something else that kind of holds the songs together, you know. It makes them White Lies songs rather than just a collection of music, you know. Okay. So we can kind of get away with it, I suppose, more than perhaps some other bands.
Still, another thing I noticed is that even though, of course, the title, as we talked earlier, as I try not to fall apart, there are some songs that actually feel hopeful.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think that's always the case with us. Like all of us, we were always labeled as this band when we were starting out as like kind of post-punk, with a kind of morbid outlook, I suppose, and a gloomy outlook on life, and there was nothing redeeming about it. It was just dark, you know. But I've never felt that was the case with our music at all. I've always found it to be very uplifting. You know, it's often about darker subject matters, but I think that's just because those kind of emotionally charged moments in life are the ones that are worth writing songs about. At least for us, like they feel like that you know, that kind of subject matter and lyrics connects with us probably more than anything else, and that's why we write about it. But that doesn't necessarily mean I think that the songs are gloomy. I don't think any of our songs ever have been, really. I think they always have at least something in them that kind of sparks your resolve, you know, makes you want to stand up and makes you want to sing out loud or whatever else, you know. It's like, yeah.
No, but that's cool. You know, I like to talk about that because even though I mean, on this side of the world, English is not our native tongue. So we first connect to the music. We feel what you're trying to say. And then I had to go through a song several times to just get the lyrics, of course.
Yeah.
You know, but that's the sense I got when I listened to the record. I had to go through it like 2-3 times before I really kind of understand what you guys were saying, just because of my language. So music is, of course, very important.
Yeah. And also, I think that I think you're quite right there, but I think that Charles writes often about things that are quite complicated, you know, and he writes about them in a complicated way. It's quite obtuse. It's not like it's always kind of metaphorical, or it's just buried in strangeness, weirdness, you know. It's not like, they're not like straight down the line, the words. They're not like, I love you, you love me, let's go out together kind of thing. It's always something odd, you know. Like, am I really going to die? That's a really strange thing to write a song about. I think, you know, someone just really paranoid and constantly worrying about what dying is going to be like. And it's so universal that, I think, but it means that the lyrics are kind of more complicated. Maybe the subject matter is more complicated.
But I like that. I think there's something that's very common in British music.
Yeah.
And not to make like a difference, American or British or whatever. I just usually find lyrically those kind of things more on British rock.
Yeah. I think it's because there's less to do here. Like we were talking about the weather, right? So like, if you're forced inside every weekend as a teenager or at any age, then you end up writing music or being creative because there's nothing else to do, just out of boredom, you know. And I think that when you live your life indoors, you have to come up with lots of weird and wonderful things to write about, because it's the only way to do it. You know, you're not going to have those amazing experiences outside with your friends running in the sun, you know.
It's funny. I've interviewed several musicians from Seattle, and they've always said that, you know, the whole
same thing.
The grunge community, or whatever you want to call them, sort of developed because there was nothing else to do.
Yeah, and I like as well that the music, to me anyway, it sounds like the weather in Seattle. Like, it sounds like what it feels like to be there. I love that. Yeah, it's very true.
So, how do you feel about this new record from the previous efforts from the band? I know, of course, as a musician, every band, every album means something special and has a special place in your heart. But from what I've listened to from your discography, what happened with Five down here in Latin America, lots of people get into White Light from Five, and now with this upcoming record. So I wanted to ask you that.
It's very hard to say how I feel about an album, really, until we start touring it, for me anyway. Like, I find that when you're making an album, you're working so hard on the songs and you listen to them so many times over and over again. Like, you know, especially when you're getting into mixing them or whatever, you know, you have to listen to, I don't know, you're just listening for little minute changes in them, and you just, for me, I have to take a step back when we finish that. You know, when we mastered the album, which we did months ago now, like 3 or 4 months ago, I just leave it and I don't listen to it again until we start playing it live. But then I'll definitely know after we play for like 6 months, you know, like when you play the songs every night, you really feel the ones that you connect with, but also you find the ones that are really easy to share with the audience, that the audience love. And that's what forms, in my mind at least, whether an album has been a success or not, I guess, is how well those songs translate to be performed live and how well they're received by an audience, you know.
And of course, you haven't played this album live.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very hard to say. We haven't even done any rehearsal for it yet, so we're a long way from that. But yeah, I felt that with Five. Going back to the Five, like there was a lot of songs on that album that people just fell in love with live, and you can just feel the reaction. You know, like okay, this song's worked well for us. Like it works, and you know, especially a song like "Time to Give," people love that. Tokyo, they're just like as soon as you start playing them, you're like, okay, people like this. We're all good. Let's go. You know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's time to bring those sounds to South America, man.
Yeah, I really hope so. So I know we always say this, or it always feels like we say this, but we are talking a lot about getting some shows in for South America on this album. So hopefully, before too long, we'll be there with you in Colombia. It'd be great to be there.
Yeah,
never been before, so it'd be very exciting for us.
Well, let's make an opportunity out of this conversation, and let's hope for you guys to come down and play to South America.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we go, if you could just say, hi, this is Harry from White Lies, and you're listening to Radioacktiva, the rock planet, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Hi, this is Harry from White Lies, and you are listening to Radioacktiva, the rock planet.
That's it, man. Thank you very much.
Sweet.
Well,
hey, it's great to meet you. Thanks so much for your time.
Great meeting you too.
I really do mean that. I really do hope we can get out there. Maybe you can meet us and show us around.
Well, that'll be great. You know, actually, there are quite a few festivals down here. That'll be, perfect to have you guys.
It feels like that's a new thing in South America, right? Festivals cropping up everywhere now, and that's great.
And
I think bands across the world are just always looking for opportunities to play in places like South America. And often festivals are like the only chance you have to do that because it's the only thing that gives you enough money to get there, basically.
Exactly. So, it became, for bands, for international bands, European, North American bands, coming on festivals is like the best, because of course for a Latin American country like Colombia, having a band playing for a one-off show, it's too expensive because of the currency exchange.
Yeah.
But if you guys come to Coachella, Lollapalooza in Brazil, you might be able to make for Lola Argentina and Stereo Pin in Colombia, and do a little tour. That's the way it works down here. But there are several bands coming with the festival circuit.
Yeah, awesome. Well, hopefully we can make it happen.
Yeah,
nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you too, Harry. Have a nice day.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.